welcome to the third day of leadership lessons from the boss from hell to boss from heaven. Hello, everyone. I'm Anne Phey, and I'm that boss from heaven or hell. You decide. And this is part of the 365 Paid Forward with Life Coach University. So if there's anything that you find that's beneficial for you today, please pay it forward by helping somebody in any way that you enjoy. So today's topic, actually, I had prepared like for every day of May to share something about leadership lessons from my experience with some theory, as well as what has happened during my course as a corporate warrior and boss. And we'll be inviting you to ask any questions. And in fact, these 31 days, after the first 2 days, I realized that we have a fantastic audience. So many of you have been really wonderful in participating, asking questions. And so I'd like to ask for permission for me to switch around the topics so that I can address the concerns that were raised in the sessions that are prior to today. So one of the questions that came up yesterday about values, because yesterday we talked about vision and values, and there were a lot of questions about what are values? What if the values are different? How do we know if the employee that's joining has a similar values and stuff like that? So I thought today I was going to go into professional leadership development, but maybe we should just pause and really address the questions and issues around values, because it looks like this is a very important fundamental part of leadership. So I don't want to move forward. And there's so much gems actually in a lot of these topics. In fact, sometimes I think about it, 31 days is very long, but 31 days is also very short. So I'm really open to how you guys want to shape the agenda. So today I thought we'll change the topic to value and values. All right. So what is the difference between value and values other than the fact that one has an S, right? And so value is what we bring to the organization. It's what clients buy from us when they come to us and they get something of value. So whether it is a product that they buy from our organization, so let's say you're in a beauty business and you're selling cosmetics. So the customer is buying a set of cosmetics, and the value, we could even make it really fanciful and say you're buying youth and beauty, but that is the value that the client attaches to your product. Or if you're working in the services side, a value could be you help to manage change for your client. So you're offering a consulting service. So for that consulting service, you're offering a smooth transition so that the clients can quickly get up to speed with the changes in the reorganization and start to win businesses and gain profit. So that is a value of the service that you're providing to the client from the organization. And if we scale it down to the employee level, so the value of the employee is what we do to create the product or the services for the company. So in that sense, value is quite definitive. So you can actually quantify the value by the task and all the things that you need to do for yourself as an employee, for you as a manager of a team. You know what you need to produce that adds on to the entire offering that the organization is providing to the client. So this is what we call value. And a lot of times, I would say from my experience, 99, perhaps 99.9% of the organizations are looking at value. So what's the problem? You might say, value is what we offer. Clients pay a price, and they could pay a premium because we offer something that is of unique value. Then that's where we talk about our unique differentiating points and why we can charge a premium, because we're so different from our competitors. And that often is what I call the head talk, which is the technical side of the business, right? We're using our head, it's very factual. These are all the things that we're providing. Even if we glamorize it and say we provide youth and beauty, that is still very much something that we can clearly put our finger on. So what's the problem? What do you guys think? So the problem we often face is that we are focused on the offering and the portfolio to the clients, and that is the headspace rather than the people space. Because while we're looking at skills and opportunities and all that, that is still very much at the headspace. So when we look at the headspace and we are not looking at the person, we we tend to not look at what are the softer aspects of the business, and that's really important. So I would take a case in example if you guys allow me to be vulnerable and share some real cases from my workplace. Disclaimer, this is my own experience. It's in no way going to demean anyone, but it's just what I've experienced so far. In an organization that's only running based on value without values, we tend to be very task oriented and we tend to look at efficiency, right? And efficiency means we're trying to do the best, the most in the shortest time for the highest profit, the best premium to the highest satisfaction of the client, right? And that is in effect, a great organization should be very efficient. And I'm not saying that that's not important. But the other aspect on values is that what is values and how would that impact the organization? I would say that if we have values, we can create a high performance team. So what's the difference? Efficiency versus high performance team. Why do you say that an efficient team is not a high performance team? Because a high performance team is one that is united to bring about a whole experience in the workplace in producing what is needed for the company. So let's peel the onion a little bit, right? What is this value that is so affecting us? So this is where I will tell you my story. Okay. So we had a very successful partner program, and part of the partner program was about supporting the partners to have all the assets and all the material, the product, the stock, to be able to sell out the products. Yeah. But however, as part of working with the partners, we often provide not just the stock, the pricing, we also provide margins where they gain a profit. So the more they sell, the more margins, the more they earn. And we also provide all kinds of support, such as technical training, sales, and marketing, and so on. Yeah. But there are a lot of gray areas that sometimes pop up. So, for example, when we do incentive trips, right? And we do overseas training. So, part of the experience of creating a great partnership and ecosystem is all the junkets, right? So, we will organize things like, cooking competitions, jungle trekking, golf, and all kinds of bonding and networking activities, right? So for us, that was pretty much part and parcel. Over here in Asia, it would probably be seen as, okay, it's part of a complete trip. But perhaps in different countries or different cultures or different organizations, you might see it very differently. So this is where the values of the people in the organization come into place. Because what had happened was that an incident was called out about the partnership program on whether these junket trips were considered bribery, right? So let's take the legal aspect of this, right? Because in situations like this, there are always many facets. But what I want to focus on is the values. What do we value in terms of where do we draw the line on our ethics and where we want to spend the money, right? And this is a very important point because in larger organizations, there might be very strict rules and policies around it. If you buy someone a drink, if you buy a meal, you buy a bigger meal, you buy an experience, you buy a spa, the amount could escalate. And at which point do you say what is ethical or not? Right. So this is just to illustrate that values are different to different people, to different organizations, different teams in different amounts. And it's really important for an organization to be really clear where your stand is. And when you're clear, then it provides the rules of engagement for the team, and they know where they stand, and they can then decide whether this is something that they resonate with and they want to work with, right? So that's one example. Another example I could cite is, let's talk about something more simple, like team engagement. So within the team, so we often have team members who are maybe um, they have the same passion to in technology. So for example, if they have a same passion and that's why they come, they work in the same company and they're really excited about bringing innovation to the client. But what underlines that efficiency again is the people relation, and what underlines that is the values. So what are values? So let's look at universal values. Universal values are things like love, compassion, understanding, patience, right? But we could also have really team values such as open communication, right? um, how do we manage conflicts, right? Values such as honesty, right? So these are the softer side of the leadership and the team dynamics that we often don't talk about. When we go for job interviews, as an employer, we don't often ask like, are you honest? How do you communicate? Um, some really good leaders do ask these kind of questions, but I would say most of the time we're just very focused on whether the person has the competency, the technical abilities, and the experience based on the CV, whether this one is good for the job. And likewise, as candidates, we are often so eager to get into jobs that we forget to ask, how do they work here? And values is one of the reasons why people would stay or why someone would leave the organization, right? Yesterday, we talked about purpose. Purpose is another one where we talk about the reason why we're doing certain things. And the reason why we're doing certain things is very much linked with the values. Because if I value innovation, then the reason why I do things could be that I love innovating, creating new ideas, and getting better at providing products or services that are an improved version, right? So let me share another example about this case in point about the values, right? So in the team, we had, as all of us know, all teams do have challenges and issues and obstacles we need to overcome together, right? So as teams, sometimes we are solving problems, but because of our professionalism and sometimes the way that we are looking at our job, we're ensuring that we're doing our best in each one of our capacity. And sometimes we don't see the overall picture. So let me just share this story about a typical front and back end conflict, right? So we had a situation where the salesperson was, as you know, very vibrant, going out to share about the company's portfolio, getting the sales in, and inevitably sometimes trying to meet the client's timeline, squeezing it a little bit, and probably promising to do more for the client just based on the price and offering negotiation, right? And at the back end, where the delivery team would be trying to put together the portfolio, making sure it's delivered on time, it's on good quality, there are no returns, warranties are protected, and it meets all the quality checks, right? So it is quite often that this happens, that there is a conflict, right? Where one may have overpromised, one finds that the timeline is too tight. And if this happens, a lot of times it creates friction and conflict again and again. Now, if we look at these two, the front end, the sales guy and the technical guy, the fulfillment guy, sometimes it can escalate to a point where they are no longer on talking terms because each one is protecting their teams because they want the best for their teams to ensure that they're able to do the work and not be affected, right? And when that happens, what are the values that they have put together as a team, right? Do they value collaboration? Do they value open discussion? Do they value honesty? Um, or do they value respect? Right. So these are the values that a lot of times is in the subconscious, right? And we're not saying that people don't respect each other, but sometimes unless you are explicitly sharing that this is the values that we subscribe to, and watch out for this, how do you touch and feel these values? It is demonstrated in the behavior, right? So when you talk about values, it needs to be demonstrated in behavior. So for example, if I'm honest, I want someone to tell me exactly what is the real situation with the client so that I can help you to solve it. Okay. So if honesty was one of the goals and the values that both parties subscribe to, then they'll be honest with each other. Hey, I don't appreciate because it's a really tight timeline and I need to get my guys to work overtime and they're already overworked on other projects. So he's being honest and he's being upfront. And the sales guy could possibly say, yeah, this is a client I don't want to lose because if he is the first of a kind, we could potentially get sales for other clients within the same industry. But now, when that conversation starts to happen because they have that honesty and they have the willingness to talk about things, so then the behavior of the honesty is knowing the truth, and the behavior of openness is to talk things out, and the behavior of team collaboration is let's look at the bigger picture of what needs to happen for the client. So when we're able to have that common handshake on values and be able to translate it to behavior, then it becomes a way that we can work together. And these are often the friction points where we have not talked about our values, we've not demonstrated the behavior, that teamwork breaks down or the leadership's not able to catch the team, and that's when attrition happens, conflicts, and when conflict starts happening, it starts the downward spiral. So which was why someone also asked me yesterday, what if a leader comes into a situation where you have a conflict on the values? And I think it is very important for us to also self-reflect and say, what are our personal values and is that aligned with the organization? Um, just for myself, I'll be very upfront to share. I was, as leaders, sometimes we're put into positions where we have to do the not so pleasant things like firing of staff, retrenchment, reorganizations, and all that. Well, if you've got the heart and the courage to do that, by all means, look at what aligns with your value. So for me, there are certain things that I value. Like I value people. And if the reorganization does not agree with my principles or my values of how I see who has the best contribution and what needs to happen, that's when I decide that I do not want to be part of the game and I step out. Does that make me any less of a leader? Perhaps it does, because I literally stepped out of a promotion that I was supposed to move into. But what it does for me is, because I value the people more than the kind of work that I was tasked to do, I had much better peace with myself. And that was just something that I chose. So all of us as leaders, we will come across many crossroads where we need to make decisions. And we make decisions on several fronts. On the organization front, where there are certain directives and tasks that we need to do. And we may face that same challenge at the team level because um, how do we handle the team uh, daily operations, conflicts, and how do we strengthen them so that they can work and collaborate greatly and be happy and be really engaged employees and and drive that high performance, right, for the result. And we also make that decision at the personal level on what agrees with our soul and our values, and how do we prioritize certain things in our lives, right? A most simple case in point would be I see a lot of parents who do step back a little from their career because they want to spend more time with their children, right? So recently I coached someone who decided that she values family time and watching her kids grow up more than the promotion, and therefore she would plan her career moves accordingly. And these are important because important consideration because values are what drives us. And if we're in a spot where the values are not aligned, we can do the job and be really great at it. So, for example, this coach of mine, she would probably ace it because she's got all the capabilities, the technical expertise, the mindset, the ambition, and she can really ace it. But in her heart, she knew her value was to spend quality time with her children, and therefore she knew that that was what she wanted, and that would agree with her even if she had taken the full-on career roadmap. She may not be happy. So what is really at stake is we need to have our own personal self-awareness of what's valuable to us, right? While we're driving all these efficiency and team engagements. And as leaders, I would also play the coach role to my team members to say, what's valuable for you? Because what's valuable for you would help you to work better. So if my team member says that she needs, like I had a team member who needed to take care of his special needs child, and he needed to take time off. And for me, that was fine. Take time off because that's important for you to care for your kids, but just come back and complete the work. And he did amazing. He went out of his way to make things work. And when we understand their value and we work with them, just imagine if every employee had that connection with you as a leader because they know what you value. They will put in 2 times, 3 times more than what they would do with a leader that just looks at value instead of values. And I would also encourage teams, if you're running cross-discipline and multi-department teams, to also look at the team collaboration and discuss it. And like, what are the top 3 values that as a team we want to embody? And what are the behaviors that demonstrate these values? And when we have that open conversation, we create a common language of how we want to operate as a team. And that is so powerful. So that's what I have to share today. So let's open up for questions. Let's check out the chat. Thank you. Great. So one of the question is, it seems like values are quite hard to define. How do I know whether I have nailed the values part? Okay, so that's a great question. So values, okay, maybe I explained it in a few different ways. The net takeaway of value is that what principle do you subscribe to and what is important for you? And that is, when you say that, sometimes it's a lot to do with your base motivation and your heart space versus the value, which is the head space, the efficiency space. So examples, um, openness, compassion, honesty, ethics, respect. Um, these are values. Okay. And behavior. Okay. So demonstration of values that turn to behavior. So behavior would be whenever I run in, so let's talk about honesty. So whenever I run into any issues, I will be honest and share with everyone what is going on so that you can solve the problem together. That's one behavior. So we talk about openness, right? So openness could be uh, the behavior will be I will make an effort to get to know everyone in the team so that we can establish common ground so that we can be able to share more openly. So the behavior becomes getting to know other people in the team, right? Another example of value would be integrity, right? So the behavior would be I will ensure that we check in with each other if there are any doubts where money spending is concerned, where it might be beyond our rules of engagement, right? So you can see that the behavior, if we are able to identify a set of behaviors that's linked to the values, then as a team, we have something active that we can do. And imagine is like a muscle, like every time you do something, you start to build that muscle. So the team members that I spoke about earlier that had that conflict between sales and fulfillment, so actually they got to a point where they were not even on talking terms, right? So when they said to respect and be open to each other, the actual behavior of that was they started to take time off to just have coffee and chat and to respect each other's point of view and to start from there. It may sound a bit difficult initially, but it does really help. Another question is there seems to be several value systems all happening at the same time. Business values, staff values, family values, personal values. How do you navigate all these different value systems and still hold on top your top values? Wow, that's a great question. We'll open up for anyone who wants to put in the chat box as well. How would you see that? I think it's a very individual question. Because we are complex beings, we are in our individual, in our family, in our community, and there are expectations from everyone as well. So it depends. Sometimes there a higher cause, like let's say someone wants to save the earth, go green, and that could be a huge global cause that everybody subscribes to. But the question is, how do you do that would then come down to the community you're in. What are you able to influence, and how does the community have their values? And then down to you yourself, what works for you. So someone would probably go and blog and talk about it. And to the person, their value is I want to be able to share and alert people so that they're aware and they can do something about it. But maybe somebody else's value is I will just do my part and what makes it work. So I would say that the value is a very personal thing. So usually what really resonates is your personal value and how then people with similar personal values will tend to flock together and congregate together. Yeah. So, and how do we teach the younger generation about staying true and being aligned to the values when they are starting off with their careers? Great question as well. I think as we start off in our career, uh, of course, we have less experience, but these days, I say the younger ones are really amazing. They actually, many times, they know what they want in their lives. So I have seen both young and older ones who have very clear views of what they like or they don't and what they value. So the way to help them to get started is a couple of ways. One is to get a coach where they can explore what's important for them, what works for them, and what they're totally against. The other way is to take psychometric assessments. I love Ree's motivation profile because he measures across some unique characteristics. He looks at family, ethics, justice, vengeance, food, all kinds of matrix, which really provides a view of the person and what's important for them. A third way is really as they're starting out to career, because we are always learning all the time, right? As we do something, we learn a little bit about ourselves and how we respond, and we hone ourselves, right? And so the learning process of the experience of working and collaborating with other team members and watching leaders will also help us to form certain mental images and impressions that will help us to guide us into what our values would be. So for example, when I first started out, I thought that it was fine so long as we were able to get to the sales targets. But it was through the education, through learning online as well as reading up, I realized that there were other perspectives and points of view, and that kind of broadened my scope of understanding, and that deepened my knowledge, and it made me evaluate where do I stand in certain areas. So if we have a great attitude, which is what I would really love for leaders to embody, and also to encourage everyone to have a lifelong learning attitude. The more we learn, the bigger our lens is, the wider our scope is. And firstly, we see all perspectives, and that's when we will have a better idea of what resonates well with us, right? Okay, and this is such a great class on values. Thank you. I'm beginning to notice how everyone in my life is living their life according to their values, living their values quietly or out loud. Yes. How do I increase my tolerance and acceptance for other people's values that are opposite to mine? What daily practice can I do to foster this? Wow, that's a really multiple questions. I'll answer one by one. Um, yeah, so values, it's very subconscious. So sometimes we're loud about it, some are not. So you're totally right on that. Um, Values is something that is so personal, which is why a lot of conflicts happen when values are opposed, right? And which is why I think you are talking about tolerance, because the more that we learn about one another and how the world works, the more we realize that there are shades of values, right? So, for example, the risk motivation profile that I talk about, let's talk about family, right? Family is such a neutral but wide spectrum. There are people who absolutely adore kids and they say, oh, I want to have a football team of kids, right? But there are others who value their independence and say that no, I just want to be solo, right? And throughout that spectrum, it doesn't mean that those that don't have kids love kids or family any less. It's just a preference. And with this whole spectrum, we could actually exist and respect one another based on what they choose. So that's just an example. So when we talk about values of openness, that differs by culture as well. Some will be more open than others. That's why when we define the behavior, it helps us to get everyone to meet in the center somewhere where we agree that's the behavior that will help us to promote open communication. So it's two things. One is opening our mind so that we are more accommodative. The second one is being defined so that we can agree on what is a set of behaviors that we can all do so that we can work together more harmoniously. And the third one is then how do we keep opening up our mind and tolerance is really learning, getting to know people, having an open mind, being mindful, and practice compassion. Yes. All right. So it looks like we have all the questions for today. And thank you so much for coming in today, everyone. Wow, I saw new names. Diane, Dimple, thank you for joining us, and all the wonderful people who have joined our sessions today. We're going to have the replay later on, which is going to be on Life Coach University. So we look forward to you guys sharing this with your friends if you think that's useful. And if you have more thoughts about what you'd like me to focus on, as mentioned, that's why today I have a blank background instead of the last 2 days, because I just want to open up and let you guys be the ones who are here to guide the discussion. And thank you, Dimple, for saying, "Oh, you've had the same experience seeing the younger ones immediately launch their passion and give it a chance." Yeah, I love that, and Ojiga for the inspiration as well. I think we're here, and I really want to appreciate you guys for coming in, because I know that you have a heart to empower others, and that's why you're here to learn more about the leadership and share common stories. And if we have our heart in the right places, we can do wonders. So thank you, and I look forward to hearing your experiences. You can PM me, you know where to find me, on Facebook or LinkedIn, or you can continue to leave the chat here, your words and questions, as well as topics for future. So we're gonna sign off. So thank you for joining us. And again, if this has been beneficial, just pay it forward in any way that you enjoy to help someone have a better life, better opportunity. So this is 365 paid for with Life Coach University. I'm Anne Phey, leadership coach and a coach trainer. See you tomorrow.